For over a century, the global economy has hung by a thread. Almost everything we touch, buy, or build relies on two narrow choke points, the Suez Canal in the east and Panama in the west. When those arteries clog, the world stops. But while the old powers fought to keep these southern lanes open, a silent shift was already underway at the top of the world. In the autumn of 2025, a ship named Istanbul Bridge did the unthinkable. It turned its back on the warm waters of the Indian Ocean and pointed its bow toward the ice. It wasn't an experiment, it was a declaration. The ice is melting, the door is open, and the race for the Polar Silk Road has officially begun. To understand the magnitude of this shift, you have to look at the data. For decades, ship tracking maps looked identical, lines curving past India, squeezing through the Red Sea, and fanning out to Europe. But in late September 2025, analysts noticed an anomaly. The Istanbul Bridge, operated by Chinese firm Sea Legend, left the port of Ningbo Zhoushan, but instead of heading south, it climbed north. Carrying 5,000 containers destined for European holiday shelves, the ship ghosted past the usual choke points. It slid over the top of Russia, crossed the Arctic Ocean, and dropped down toward Britain. The math was undeniable. A standard southern route through Suez takes 40 days. Around the Cape of Good Hope, 50 days. The Istanbul Bridge docked in Felixstowe, Britain, in less than 20 days. They had cut the travel time in half. Customs officers and Sea Legend representatives weren't just talking about a lucky trip, they were discussing the future. Quicker restocking, slashed fuel costs, and a supply chain immune to southern instability. China had just switched on a new lane in the global trade map. But this shortcut wasn't discovered, it was engineered. Rewind to the summer of 2013. China's state shipping giant COSCO sent a vessel called the Yongsheng into the high latitudes. At the time, it was seen as a curiosity, half commercial trial, half science experiment. For years, the route was a gamble. Thick ice, astronomical insurance fees, and total reliance on Russian pilots kept traffic low. But the planet was changing faster than the shipping regulations. Satellite records confirm that September sea ice has dropped by roughly 50% since the late 70s. The Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the globe. By 2018, China had seen enough. They released an official policy declaring China a near-Arctic state. The goal, build a polar Silk Road. The numbers followed the policy. In the early 2010s, cargo volume was a negligible 4 million tons. By 2024, that number hit nearly 38 million tons. This was no longer a frozen wasteland, it was a corridor open for business. From the Kara Sea to the Bering Strait, this water is a controlled zone. To enter, you don't just need a ship, you need a permit from the Northern Sea Route Administration. The vetting is extreme. Hull strength, engine class, cold water survival gear. If approved, you don't sail alone. You are assigned an ice pilot, a Russian advisor who dictates your speed and course, and often you are told to get in line behind the true kings of the North. Russia operates the world's only fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers. Ships like the Arctica class, over 500 feet long, powered by reactors that can run for years without refueling. These leviathans don't just push ice aside, they ride up onto it, using tens of thousands of tons of gravity to crush the frozen pack from above. They carve the path. The merchant ships simply follow in their wake. Without Russian cooperation, the Polar Silk Road is a dead end. But recently, that cooperation has turned into a strategic alliance. The proof of this alliance sits on the frozen coast of the Yamal Peninsula, the Yamal LNG plant. Skeptics said you couldn't liquefy natural gas in these conditions. They were wrong. By 2024, the terminal shipped a record 21 million tons of LNG, and much of that gas was headed east. To move it, they built the ARC-7 carriers. These are hybrids, standard tankers in the front, icebreakers in the back. When the ice gets thick, they turn around and steam backward, their reinforced sterns grinding through 4 feet of solid freeze. But China isn't content with just buying the gas. They are learning to master the ice themselves. Enter the Shuilong 2, or Snow Dragon 2, China's first domestically built polar icebreaker. It has spent seasons scanning the floor of the Arctic, gathering data on density, currents, and navigation windows. With plans for a heavy icebreaker that rivals the Russian nuclear fleet, Beijing is signaling that they won't be passengers in the Arctic forever. They intend to be pilots. Why take the risk? Why brave the ice, the darkness, and the Russian bureaucracy? Because the alternative is failing. The global trade map is breaking. In late 2023, the Red Sea became a war zone. Attacks by Houthi forced major liners to abandon the Suez Canal, diverting traffic around Africa. The detour added 10 days and millions of dollars to every voyage. Egypt's canal revenue plummeted by hundreds of millions a month. Simultaneously, across the Atlantic, the Panama Canal was being strangled by drought. Water levels dropped so low that the number of daily transit slots was slashed by half. The world was running a 21st century economy on 19th century canals. In this chaos, the Arctic isn't just a shortcut, it is an escape hatch. Economists estimate that even if the Northern Sea Route captures only 5% of global trade, it will be the most critical 5%, the high-value cargo that cannot afford to wait for war or weather. The voyage of Istanbul Bridge proved the concept. The ice is retreating, and a new axis of power is forming in the vacuum it leaves behind. As the old canals dry up and burn out, the future of trade is looking north, cold, dangerous, and incredibly fast. The map hasn't just changed, it's been rewritten.